So what is so fun around IF is that we get to bring our friends into fantastic conversations. And so one of our favorite friends who has really served as an advisor for me and for IF Gathering from the beginning is Lisa Harper. She is an incredible communicator. If you've ever been blessed to sit under her teaching at Women of Faith or in your church or in her DVD series, she's an incredible communicator. She just makes Jesus so dear and so real. But she's also just one of my favorite people. She's hysterical, and we've shared this adoption journey together. And she is this light that when she walks into a room, she just lights it all up. And she, you know, what I love about her too is that she just makes you feel so loved. And I don't think that's, you know, a put on. Nothing about her is fake. She is just so genuinely in love with Jesus and in love with people. And so, Lisa, we're so excited to have you today, and we're going to talk about some big things.
We are going to talk about big things. I hope, although when you said nothing about her is fake, I thought, you know, in a few years, I think something will be. Large things that are quickly descending, and I won't go there, but
no, not start talking about Minute one, we're talking about, yes, surgery, plastic surgery, awesome. See, I love you. You'll announce it. If you do it, you'll you know, take us into the room with you.
I might even post pictures and say, look how cute they are now. Look at me.
Girl, I love it. Okay, so what we're going to talk about besides, you know, implants and your little girl that is in the next room that's home today from school, Missy.
That's right. She is kind of playing hooky. The doctor said she might have strep throat. She doesn't. So she is currently watching either Frozen or Cinderella. If it's Frozen, I'm going to stick my hand in a blender because I have now seen it 752 million times.
Yeah, I know. We know all the songs at our house. My girls have memorized every word, and Frozen needs to go away. It's time.
It is time. It's time. It's time for a new video.
So what I want to talk about first is believing God. I want to talk about this message for you because I've known you for years. Yeah. And you live this way. This is just who you are. This is how you think. This is how you live. You live surrendered. You believe Jesus. You take him at his word, and your life is just a testimony to that. But I know that that kind of faith is not easy. That does not just fall upon us necessarily, although I do believe God gives us faith. Yeah. But it's always a war because there is an enemy. What does that look like for you to just believe God in your life?
It started probably, I guess it's been 4 or 5 years ago. I was on a flight, and you know this, I've turned into this jaded frequent flyer because I fly all the time. And so I always kind of try to, get in my exit row aisle seat, and I put in my earphones before we're even allowed to turn them on because I do not want to chat with anybody. I don't want to report spiritual laws. I just want to be in a coma until we get to the next airport, and I don't really want to engage. I just want to read something deeply theological, like a magazine or the Pottery Barn catalog. And I was in that posture, and this elderly woman ended up sitting next to me, and I was kind of rude to her. I didn't really engage her because I just didn't want to chat, and she was real chatty. Long story short, this woman ended up telling me that she was going on her 51st mission trip outside of the continental U.S. at 83. And I was like, oh, golly, if I get out of this without being fried by lightning, it's going to be a miracle because, she was basically Jesus Jr., and I'd been rude to her. But listening to Miss Agnes talk about taking risk and how the second half of her life was really more exciting, more adventuresome as a Christ follower than the first half, I was convicted. And I thought, I love Jesus. I'm in vocational ministry, which is actually easier than all the girls listening who busted as moms and even work outside the home and don't get paid to talk about Jesus. But my life is definitely, the trajectory of my life is running toward Jesus. But I had gotten kind of comfortable. And I thought, the world's upside down. I mean, literally causing trouble. And I thought, I want to be a little more of a troublemaker. I want to take bigger risk. I mean, I have turned 50. I'm in the second season, the downhill, if you will, side of my life. I want it to be bigger. I care less now than I ever have before about what other people think. And so I thought, I just want to run hard for Jesus and kind of there's, there's no parameters anymore. I just want to love him hard. And so the last couple of years have been all about risk.
Mm. And so I've gotten to see some of that risk, and I know it's really difficult for both of us to call. So I adopted when Cooper was 4 years old from Rwanda. I adopted him, and I, we call them at times risks because we had no idea what we were doing, but they're the most delightful additions to our lives in the world. I know you feel that way.
Changes everything. I mean, I didn't plan on going through, motherhood and menopause at the same time, but I'd always wanted to be a mom. But I thought I was really broken in my 20s and 30s, and so I missed the window to be a biological mom. And so I thought, I've just missed it. I didn't think God was being punitive. I just thought that's a consequence of me, being a real hot, wild mess in my 20s and 30s and not getting married. And then I went to this mission conference that talked about how there's 147 million orphans, give or take a few, who desperately need people to step in the gap for them. And of course, a lot of those kids, in third world countries will die if somebody, even a fluffy, menopausal woman in Tennessee, doesn't step in the gap for them. So I thought, if it's a kid who doesn't have a shot at a mom and a dad, which is best case scenario, I'll sign up for one of those kids. And I actually lost 2 adoptions prior to a friend calling, and she said, we thought about you because while we were in Haiti, this little girl's mom died of AIDS. Nobody knew she had AIDS. And this little girl named Missy has HIV, and she had a slew of other problems. And they said, unless somebody stands in the gap, she'll die. And they said, no pressure, but will you pray about it? And I said, no, I won't pray about it. I've been praying about this for 30 years. And so I said, sign me up. And 6 weeks later, they put her in my arms. And she was almost 3, but she was only 19 pounds. She was so sick. And I mean, it was like, stick a fork in me. I am done. And Jenny, I mean, it's not adoption, especially international adoption, can be a real booger. It was a long 2 years. At one point, they told me, I wasn't going to get her. And I was like, okay, well, then I'll fly to Haiti or swim there if I have to. And I'll knock on every single door and kick every shin I have to get my daughter. And something came up even in the process of God so graciously allowing me to be her mama that also provoked the fighter in me. I'm kind of Michael Jackson. I've always been more of a lover than a fighter. Don't like conflict. But when Mama Bear rises up, I've realized that's also part of what I want to rise up in me as a Christ follower, that I will be aggressive with grace, aggressive with the name of Jesus. I don't want to be a polite Christian any more than I want to be a polite mama that takes a back seat when my baby needs me to fight for her.
So you work on this project, and you're in the middle of your new life with Missy, and you're picturing all of these people that are going to read this and go through this material.
I wasn't picturing all of these people. I was picturing my mother and my cousins. Because
whatever. You've been doing this long enough. But you have this burden and passion for people, and you want them to be in this place of surrender and passion for Christ. What do you think is keeping people from that? What's the disconnect?
I think that, well, this is an overgeneralization, but in my little corner of the world, I think often the disconnect between Christ and unbelievers is Christians. Because I think when they see us not madly in love with the God we say has changed our lives, when they see us bitter and discontent, when they see us picking at each other on social media, when they see us living far, far short of the abundant life we preach about, I think there's people who go, oh, that's a way, that's a philosophy, or that's fine for them. But meanwhile, I feel like I'm just as happy. I'm more content. I definitely have, wider parameters than they have. So I don't think modern day Christians are always the best poster children for why we should run hard toward Jesus, and myself included. And so he has spanked me hard several times in the last couple of years to, what do you think your life looks like to somebody outside? Are you loving them so well it makes them, kind of shocked? are you being straightforward? I'm also so offended by my own ability to tolerate things. You know, I think it's time that people outside the community of Christ go, dang, those people are pretty serious about what they believe. You know, I may not agree with them, but golly, they are fired up about this truth. Again, you look at the believers in the book of Acts, and they were so committed to the cause, they changed culture. You know, Dr. Martin Luther King said the church used to be a thermostat. Church literally used to change the temperature of culture. And he said, we have become a thermometer. Now we just kind of, you know, stick our finger to the wind and take the temperature of culture rather than really setting it. And so, I mean, even I can't tell you how many opportunities I've had to rub shoulders with guys who are dying of AIDS when I wait in line for Missy's meds at the specialty clinic. I never imagined I would, you know, develop these relationships with these precious guys who are taking the same meds my baby takes for her HIV. I don't want to be just this sweet little Christian woman with a Vera Bradley Bible cover when I hang out with those guys and talk to those guys. I want to share a message that is for them, that is shockingly gracious and at least makes them pause and go, wow, that chick actually lives a dangerous life because she believes, you know, this unconditional love of Jesus is true.
First, do you really have a Vera Bradley? Does Vera Bradley make Bible covers? Is this true?
A fear of what?
Does Vera Bradley really make Bible covers?
I think she does. I mean, I've definitely seen something that's the Paisley. You know, I've been to conferences, and no, I don't want to diss Vera Bradley. I'm sure she is the nicest person ever. But I just, you know, I think when we spend more time in our Bible paraphernalia,
there's definitely a problem with that.
Running hard after.
I want to go to what you just said in a way and say that I love this. And one of the reasons, Lisa, we wanted to do this with you is because we really do believe that this is the most essential thing to a life that God moves through is surrender.
Oh,
and obedience. I mean, this is the platform that every other thing takes place. You know, I think for so long I tried to manage, you know, my sin, and I tried to manage, you know, even my gifts and what God had for me. But because there wasn't this complete surrender, you know, I think most of the verses that Christ talks about the abundant life and what it means to be filled with the Holy Spirit, those things just were not alive in me because I was controlling my life rather than surrendering it all. Right. So we do believe that this is the most essential thing as a believer, next to praying in faith that and receiving Christ as Savior, that you'll ever do, is to actually just say, I'm in no matter the cost. And I think you're right, Lisa, that risk is so often a way that God causes surrender to happen for us.
Yeah.
I think we are looking at a time in the church and in America, I really believe that risk for Christ is going to be the norm, and that it isn't as easy right now to
I agree.
Be a believer. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually think that that's going to purify the remnant and make us actually live like we are filled with the Spirit.
Well, and I think we also caricaturize risk as being all about us being strong and mature, when if you study, especially the book of Acts, they were brave, but their risk was more about hurling themselves at the Savior who had rescued them than it was about their own merit. You know, Peter, of course, preaches the first sermon, 3,000 people get saved, but less than 2 months prior to that, Peter had thrown Jesus under the bus, not once, but 3 times, when he vehemently and vulgarly denied him. And so you see this train wreck of a man. You know, he was Benedict Arnold and he becomes Billy Graham. And that's because of the absolute mercy and grace of Jesus. So was Peter inordinately brave? No, he had experienced this unconditional grace that so changed him that he was just hurling himself at the God who defined him. And so I think that's the big part too, is us not being raising up and being this big bad Christian army. It's us realizing that we are running hard behind the guy with the biggest stick. Jesus is the one who carries the biggest sword. So are you willing to run hard toward Jesus, this God who on our worst day, when we're in our, fat pants and have really bad hair, on that day, he calls us beautiful. So what do we have to lose to throw everything in with a God who says, I will never, ever leave you or forsake you? So I go, for it to be a risk, the chips are stacked on our side.
Right, and I do agree with that, but I know that there are people listening, and I've been that person that there are things to lose. I just had a conversation over Skype last night with the Bible study in Kansas, and it was a Bible study of girls that were praying surrender prayers, but they had all lost children.
Oh,
and I just thought, okay, and one of them specifically just talked about how they want to trust God again, but they're afraid.
Right.
Because they've tasted darkness. So I think that holds people back a little bit, is if I surrender everything and I'm all in, what is it really going to cost me here?
Right. And it, like you said, it could cost you everything here. That's where I think it's easier for me to say as I turned 52 in 2 weeks. And so, I've lost my metabolism, but I also have lost a lot of the fear I had when I was 30 and 40, because I have lost a lot of temporal things. I'm single. I lost 2 adoptions prior to getting Missy. I've lost a lot of things that I tried desperately to hang on to. And you get to this stage of life, and I don't mean to sound like I have one foot in the grave. That's probably why I still ride a motorcycle and wear leather pants, is to feel younger than I actually am. But you go, this really isn't our home. G.K. Chesterton said that we have come to the wrong star. So the time and space template that we tend to define ourselves by, it's not true. We're going to another world. So the temporary losses here, they can be heart-wrenching and devastating, but they don't define us, because our next chapter is with Jesus, where there's no more dying and no more crying. I think that's why they were able to say at the end of this love story called the Bible, they didn't love their lives so much that they weren't willing to die. And so, you may lose everything. I just lost, I won't go into detail, but somebody I love very, very much, who struggles with addiction, just sent me a text 3 days ago and said, do me a favor, lose my number, we're done. And it pierced my heart like a sword. And it was really over the gospel, because Jesus will offer this person freedom and forgiveness and joy, but this person is going to have to lay down their addiction. And as the person who loves them but told them the truth, I'm now the one that this person has cut off contact with. Golly, it about kills me to lose this relationship. It's a primary relationship for me, but I believe God has more in store. And so I'm going to keep loving this person as hard as I can, but I've lost daily contact with him, and I might have lost that for a long, long time. The end result for him, I hope, pushes him to Jesus.
I'm so sorry, Lisa. That is heartbreaking. And I promise you a lot of people watching this relate to that in some way. I feel like that's one of the ways the devil is at work, is dividing us and dividing us from people that we love and people that we think we need to do life.
Absolutely. The devil, he's so savvy. I think sometimes, again, we caricaturize him as this little guy in a red suit and horns, but he is so savvy and so brilliant at spewing toxins at us that are plausible. He never says to me, Lisa, you're a woman of few words and a high metabolism. You have the gift of concise. I would see that lie coming a mile away. But he'll use things that have some truth from my past. You were abused, or, you aren't married, or, so-and-so didn't love you enough to stick around. He'll use those half-truths, and then he'll spew crud at me that is plausible, that I'll swallow. He's so savvy. He's been defeated. Revelation says he has a sword in his breast. He's going down, but that's why the dragon is so dangerous. He whips that tail around, and he really does damage.
Let's talk a little bit about You mentioned that you're not married, and I know there are people watching that, are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and they're also not married.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that journey for you and how you have, you're one of the most joyful, content people I know on earth. And I would love to hear kind of how that has played out and how God has provided that contentment and joy for you.
Yeah, contentment was a long time coming. In my 20s and 30s, I was pretty desperate to be married and felt like I wasn't complete without being married, especially in church culture. And I was very, very broken. I was drawn to abusive men. And so God protected me from the abusive guys I was drawn to. And he protected the few good, godly guys I dated from me because I was such a train wreck. And so looking back with perspective, I can see why I remained single through my 20s and 30s. It was God's protection. It's just like with Gomer. Remember in Hosea when it says he built a fence around her, not to protect her from what was outside the fence, to protect her from herself. And that's what God had to do to me in romantic relationships, because I was just my picker was broken, and I would have made a really, really bad, probably dangerous choice. But then when I got to 40 and I realized, yikers, not that I'm fixed, but I'm finally freer than I ever hoped to be. There just wasn't anybody who loved Jesus who I wanted to marry. I actually made a deal with God and said if I wasn't married when I turned 40, I was either going to get a husband or I was going to get a Harley Davidson. And I ended up getting a Harley Davidson. But, I definitely did some unhealthy things to fill that gap. At this point, again, it's taken a long time to actually begin to live out the promise of Scripture that says he's a husband to the husbandless. If it's God's will that I get married, I'd love for Missy to have a baby daddy. And I'm plating a guy right now, which means we're kind of platonically dating. So I call it plating. So you never know. I haven't given up on marriage if that's God's will. It's just not preeminent in my life anymore. God has been so gracious, and he's such a good husband. I have saved pictures of when I was younger so that if I ever do marry, I can show them and go, do you see what you missed when I had really great legs?
Whatever. Whatever. You are so darling. I will not have you say that.
But, it has actually been a sweet, sweet journey to this place. And I'm not always content. Sometimes Valentine's Day is hard. Sometimes Christmas is hard. There's seasons when it feels like everybody else has a Norman Rockwell life or a parenthood life or modern family life, whatever life you think is this great life. And you think, gosh, it's just me, at least it'd be nice if somebody could carry the heavy stuff. And then God will do something that reminds me in such a tangible way that he sees me and cares for me, that then it's okay again.
I think your next book needs to be plating.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about either plating or The Haitian Who Kidnapped My Heart, one or the other,
or both. Okay, so Lisa, this is so fun. I could just talk all day. I love it.
It's just I want to touch you. I haven't gotten to hug you in like a year, and I'm like, my sweet Jenny is right there, but I can't touch her.
I know. Let's see each other really, really soon.
Yeah, we need to remember.
And what we want to do is we're so excited. We get to give away 5 of your books.
Oh, cool.
So if you enter to win down below, you can sign up below. We're going to give away 5 copies by Friday.
Awesome.
So, isn't that fun?
Yeah, that's really fun.
When does the book come out and where can they get it?
It just came out last week, and they can get it anywhere they sell books or online at christianbook.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can pick it up at, Lifeway stores, family bookstores. I've been doing, because you know how it's so weird to promote your book on social media. I always feel like, don't dislocate your shoulder for patting yourself on the back. So I have a hard time with some of the self-promotional stuff, but I've been doing this thing where I get Missy to sign books because nobody cares about my signature anymore. And she loves to practice writing her name. So one time when she saw me signing a book, she just said, Mama, I sign it too. So she wrote her little name in the front. Well, I've been leaving books where I go places like at an airport or in these funky coffee shops in Nashville. hiding them and then putting it on social media and just having Missy sign them. So that's been my little fun giveaway campaign, little random acts of Missy books.
I love that. Okay, I want you to go get Missy too. And the book is called Believing Jesus.
Come here, baby.
And it's a study on the book of Acts. And I'm telling you, I mean, Lisa has a way with words and makes you love Jesus more.
Hey,
Today. Okay, so here's Missy.
Hi, Miss Jenny.
Hi, Missy girl.
Present for Miss Jenny because she loves it so much. She loves this song. Do you want to sing a little bit of Let It Go?
Oh. I will love it when you sing it, Missy. Sing it. We'll sing it together.
She's usually not shy, so I think that's just she's engaged in her movie. Usually she is like me. It's so funny when you adopt a kid and they have all your mannerisms. She is like such a windbag. She is me through and through usually. Yeah.
God gave you the right kid. She is a little you.
She, yeah, good and bad. Good and bad, yeah.
Thanks, Lisa, so much. It's so fun.
Jenny, have a great afternoon.
Thanks.